freaking first cut. Golly. Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your recap episode for this week's Fortinet Championship. And joining me to break it all down, Greg DuCharme is here. Greg, what's up?
What's going on, Rick? What a tournament. Excited for this upcoming week as well. It's definitely on the front of my mind, but congrats to Max Homa.
Congrats to Max Homa. Kyle Porter is here. KP, welcome. One of, 48 events in the books.
I lose track. Yeah, had a fun neighborhood kids baseball game that I just got in from, so caught the end of Max's win. And
how'd you play?
I mean, I was just mashing on 8-year-olds. I was taking people deep. One of my friends says,
were you bat flipping?
Oh yeah, big time. One of my friends says, we always need to let the kids get close, but never let them win. So give them hope and then take it away, because whenever they do eventually beat us, which is inevitable when they turn 13 or 16 or whatever, it'll be really meaningful. So yeah, it was a blast. But Max's win was great too.
Well, we'll get to that. I wonder what's better, Kyle at neighborhood baseball with the kids or Greg at Nerf basketball. This is really
wow.
I mean, I'm just honored to be in the presence of both of you, just premier athletes. I just love that I get to share.
And you should be.
I had Jose Bautista's name invoked on a couple of my bat flips, so I don't know if Greg has anything. I don't know if Shaq was invoked when you ripped the Nerf basketball backboard.
Yeah, it turns out they frown on hanging on the rim.
Not quite as durable as we'd like it to be. All right, gentlemen, here we go. Fortinet is in the books. Max Homa, friend of the pod, gets it done. A weekend that was highlighted by 65 on both Saturday and Sunday. But if we look at his final round here, Greg, I got to admit, I kind of thought he was dust when he made bogey on 10. I was like, all right, well, it was a good run for Max. He played well on Saturday with Phil. He kind of gave this leaderboard a scare. And then he plays his final 6 holes at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 under par, including holing out from the rough on number 12. I mean, it was just like he flipped the switch and just ran over the rest of the field.
The shot at 12 is fantastic, and that's obviously the highlight. But one thing I love about this golf course is the 16 and 18 finish. It creates a lot of that drama. You have that opportunity, and it's very easy to feel like somebody, from a viewer's perspective, feel like somebody's out of it when they make a mistake early. But there are a lot of opportunities coming in to make birdies if you're playing well. And Max Homa is swinging so well. His ball flight is under so much control. As they were saying on the broadcast, he's got control of it in both directions, up and down, high and low. And that's the kind of thing that you can get really hot. And when all of a sudden putts start to fall the way they did for him over the weekend, I mean, today he made over 100 feet of putts, 108 feet of putts. He's 7th in strokes gained putting. Will you combine a golf swing like he's feeling right now and you make a couple of putts on top of it, you can make a run like that.
Yeah, the swing has been good for a while, KP. I mean, we talked to him. He came on the pod in June, I believe, at the end of June. And he talked about how he was working hard on the short game. And that was really the one thing. He was very bad on and around the greens at the end of last season. But he gains in those two categories over 7 strokes, 3 around the green, 4.1 on the putting surfaces over the course of the week. It was never really an issue with the swing. Once he started rolling the rock and not kind of hemorrhaging strokes around the greens, that's when you're going to see Max Homa's name near the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is, we're talking about, I mean, think about where Max Homa was at, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and now we're talking about these minute things that he's trying to improve on that lead him. I just tweeted this, but he's really normalized winning. Like, I didn't watch a ton of this tournament. I was in and out. I was kind of spending time with the family, prepping for the Ryder Cup. And so you see Max Homa's name up there, and it's like, oh yeah, like it's not shocking. And I think that's a really Like that's a big leap in your career when you can lead a tournament, when you can win a tournament, and people are like, oh yeah, of course, yeah, Max Homa won another event. Like that's the point is that it's very like you say that very casually because that means you've normalized doing that, and I think that Homa has done that over the. I mean, I tweeted the stat. He's won, I think, one of his first 110 PGA Tour starts, and then 2 of his last 18. And so all of a sudden, you're talking about a guy that it's like he's like a top 30 guy in the world, a top 35 guy in the world, however you want to kind of frame that. And I think it's a really impressive career leap in a pretty short amount of time for a guy it's not like he's the talent of a Rory or a JT or something like that. Like he's a good player who's really progressed, and I think it's a ton of fun to watch.
The progression, the trajectory of Max Homa's career, I find fascinating, Greg, because we see a lot of different trajectories. Some guys, they start fast and then they kind of struggle to keep up the same pace, or guys that take a long time to get to their ceiling, and then once they get there, they stay there for a while. There's just a lot of different ways to get it done. Homa has kind of been on this steady climb seemingly year after year, just getting better at golf. There's a lot of different ways that we could calculate this or put a number on it, but I'm just looking at his year-end official world golf rankings. So year-end 2018, he was 843rd in the world. Big leap at the end of 2019, he was 130th. End of 2020, 100th. Before this event, 44th, going to move up obviously after this victory, but it's just like, it's a really impressive, steady, consistent improvement that we're seeing from Max Homa.
It has been since his win at the Wells Fargo. But before that, there was kind of a back and forth. He gets on tour in 2015 and misses 15 cuts in 27 events. He comes in like 244th. I'm sorry, 163rd. He loses his card, goes back to the Corn Ferry Tour, gets it back in 17, plays only 17 events, doesn't go very well. So he loses it, doesn't play the PGA Tour in 18. And then in 19, he gets back on tour and he wins at the Wells Fargo. And this is the thing I find so interesting is when he wins at the Wells Fargo in 19, and then in 20, all of a sudden, you start to see a little bit of consistency. He starts to get, it's almost like there's a pressure that was relieved because of the 2-year exemption. And he's able to rattle off a couple of top 10s in a row. He had that stretch. Early in that year from the Farmers to the Genesis, where he had 4 straight events inside the top 15. And then he backs it up later in the year with a tied 3rd at the 3M. And there's a comfort level. There's a pressure that's relieved, and he was able to start playing some golf. And then you see him win last year at the Genesis, and also, 5 top 10s last year, 12 top 25s. It's a totally different player than you originally saw. And now you see him winning the very first event of the season in 2021. And I expect that steady increase in top 10s and the consistent performance to prevail, because he knows he belongs. There's no longer that fight for your card. There's no longer that question of, am I really good enough? And I think for Max, he answered that question at the Wells Fargo in 19 and has only solidified and reassured that belief going forward.
We might have talked about this, Greg, but do you think Max can win a major? Like, do you think he has the type of game where he can go win a U.S. Open or a PGA Championship, something like that?
The challenge is the player that used to be really accurate off the tee, like the short hitter, the surprise winner of a major, had a real place at the U.S. Open. And you felt like for a long time, a lot of guys could win a major because the U.S. Open, the way it was set up, the way the players played it, the strategy that they took at a U.S. Open. But what we've seen in the last 6 renditions is a different style player win U.S. Opens. And I think that's a hindrance for a Max Homa. He's a 300 guy off the tee, which isn't short. So it's long enough, but is it long enough to compete with the Rahms and the Rorys and the Brysons and some of these DJs? I mean, that list of guys I'm naming now has only gotten longer and longer and longer, and it makes it really challenging. So in order for him to win a major, in my opinion, he's got to really shore up and become a great short game and putting player. I don't think his ball striking ceiling is high enough even though it's really good, and Rick was documenting that earlier. It's really good, but I don't think it's good enough to win on that alone. I think he is a guy like a Berger or a Harris English, where he's got to be really well-rounded from tee to green in order to win a major. And I don't think he's there yet. You like what you see on and around the greens this week, but I don't think he's done that consistently enough at this point.
Maybe a little like Xander-ish, because I think that we look at guys like Xander and Cantlay. I think Cantlay is probably a better like a pure ball striker than Xander, maybe just a little bit. But I think Xander is just, he's so well-rounded. And so you see him contending at, Xander's long too. So that's a difference.
Cantlay's long too.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Cantlay's long, but
right? I mean,
yeah. So Homa's major finishes as a pro. So he played in the 13 U.S. Open and missed the cut. But as a pro, T64 at the 2019 PGA, and then 6 missed cuts in a row, and then T40 at this year's Open. So he hasn't played in a ton, but he hasn't had much success. So I'm interested by that, because now it's, I don't know, man, like winning 3 times over the course of 2.5 years, that's a pretty, and it's not like tiny events. These, Napa's not the biggest thing in the world, but it's, Hideki was there and Rom was there and Phil. Phil's probably not the right guy to throw into that group, but it's not as if and this is a little bit of like what we talk about with somebody like Kevin Na, right? Where Kevin Na has started winning a lot. And you're like, okay, can that translate at a major championship? Can you do that at a PGA championship? And maybe not, but I do think Max, he's not fully formed. I don't think. I mean, we've seen that progression over the last 2 years a lot. And so maybe there's another couple levels to get to for him, specifically at major championships.
That's kind of what I was alluding to, Greg. I like my trajectory thing was more like, what is his ceiling and how far away from it are we? Now a 3-time winner on the PGA Tour. What is there left to do to win more often, right? Win 4, 5, 6 times, to contend more, maybe grab a major championship. Is he going to be a guy that is going to be consistently in the conversation for Ryder Cups and President's Cups? Like what is the ceiling of Max Homa, or do we not even really know yet?
It's hard to judge. But what I can say is what his next steps are, or if I were coaching him, where my mind would be. And I think he hasn't made a tour championship yet. So getting to East Lake for a season on tour would highlight not just your ability to win, but your ability to play a great season on tour, and really consistently and regularly throw in top 10s. He's done it in bunches, in pockets, where he's had some really good play. Perhaps it's a course fit thing, but there hasn't been a stretch where, wow, he's been top 30 for the past 2 months. He hasn't gotten to that point yet. So I think there's a level of consistency. Making the Tour Championship would highlight that he's done that. It would signify that he's done that. So I would imagine that's on his goal sheet. Making a Ryder Cup team on points would be another thing that says, okay, now you've done it for 2 years. For 2 years in a row, you've been good enough. You've caught the eye of the captain. You've earned enough points. You've played in big events. You've done all these things to merit a spot on a Ryder Cup team. That would be a next one. I would put those 2 ahead of winning a major, and even ahead of winning a major would be getting in contention in a major. Like Kyle was saying, he hasn't played in a lot of them, so he's not the type of player that's designing his schedule around majors. He's designing his schedule around courses that he likes. He wants to be able to go play places he thinks he can have success. And you learn that through years on tour. But there's a level of player who is designing their schedule to peak at a certain point so they can win certain events. And I don't think he's there yet. I think his game has a little work, but I just think there's a couple check marks along the way that he could get to first.
How about this for our career comp, Rick?
Okay.
Jimmy Walker.
Ooh. Okay.
So it's not that the career arc is very different, right? Because Jimmy Walker didn't start winning until he was 34 or whatever. And Homa's just now 30, but 6 wins, a major, a couple top 10s at other majors. A little success at the Players Championship. TPC Sawgrass somewhere I think Homa could thrive, could play really well.
I agree with that.
Jimmy Walker finished top 10 there in 2014, and then he finished second in 2018. Was that Webb? I think Webb won it that year. Big. So yeah, I think 6 tour wins and a major and some contention at others. I think that's like a legitimate, like, this is who Max Homa could end up becoming over the next, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And who knows? Like, we don't know how this is going to go, but I think that's a fair, legitimate, like, and maybe he surpasses that. Maybe he wins multiple majors. I have no idea, but that to me seems like, okay, this is fair. If he surpasses it, he was awesome. If he undershoots it, then maybe he didn't quite achieve kind of like what we thought he maybe could.
Yeah, Jimmy Walker spent 4 consecutive years inside the top 50 of the world rankings. 3 of those years he was inside the top 25 for the vast majority. Like, that would be, and that would be a hell of a career. That would be an awesome career,
Ryder
especially Cup. Yeah, especially in this era. That would be an unbelievable career. So I'd be super stoked. That's a pretty good comp.
The one thing on that Jimmy Walker, I got something on Jimmy. So Jimmy Walker from 2013 to 2016,
citizen's arrest or something.
No.
He's got the evidence.
Yeah,
smoking gun.
Jimmy Walker has something that I think is a little different than Max, at least at this point. And he spent these 3 years, 13, 14, 15, 16 as well. So 4 years where he was top 50 in strokes gained approach, top 50 in putting. And in some of those years, he was second in putting in 15. He was 7th in approach the green in 16. So he was always, you knew that Jimmy Walker was a great iron player, and he matched it with putting. And that combo is pretty lethal. And I haven't seen Max Homa reach that ceiling, reach that area in his game yet where, okay, he is an elite. Last year he was 40th on tour approaching the green. That's his best ever. 118th in putting. And there's not that that area of excellence that I think Jimmy Walker had. And I think for a lot of guys who are, not the guys you think of in winning a major, maybe Jimmy was at that time, but they excel in an area. They have an area of real strength. And then the other things can kind of fill in and back up. So for Max, because I don't see that area, I think he's got to get more well-rounded. And I don't know if he's going to make it to be that elite iron player on the PGA Tour. So he needs all these other areas to fill into place. I think that's kind of the difference.
We'll see. I'm excited. Max is great. Joe, his caddy is awesome. I like these guys. I like to see them win.
Great.
Yeah. Solo second for Maverick McNealy, and there was KP. There was a moment. There was a moment in this event for Maverick McNealy. He was standing on 17T. He had just taken a glance at a leaderboard in which would have shown him, I believe, tied with Max Homa. And then we got the little bit of a roar from 17 green where Homa made birdie. So he knew exactly where he stood on 17T. And he immediately hit one dead right into the trees, dropped straight down, 166 yards from from the tee box, goes on to make double. That was the moment. Now, the other moment is the second that pressure was alleviated and Homa had won this thing, he rolls in an eagle putt on 18 to capture solo second. But it was kind of those two moments at the end for McNealy seemingly defining his week.
Well, that's a little bit of why, Mark gets on us for, hey, you actually have to watch, right? Because you just look at the board and you're like, oh, Mav lost by 1, shot 68 on Sunday. It's pretty good. But then you watch and you're like, oh, that like the way the scorecard looks and the leaderboard it didn't really like, I guess not the scorecard, I guess the leaderboard. The way the leaderboard looks is not how it felt it playing out, right? And so, yeah, it's a bummer. I think how old is Maverick McNealy? Is he like 26, something like that?
I just looked this up because I was in his college stuff. So he is 25 years old.
25. Okay. He's interesting because he's not a phenom. I mean, he was really good in college, right? But he's not been a phenom as a pro. But he's good. Like, he's really good. And I think the last part of that is like what I just said. He is a pro. Like, he is not, like, he's very much like, and you wouldn't maybe expect this from somebody who, I think everybody knows his story. His dad was a billionaire or is a billionaire or whatever. He's kind of like grindy, like and he's talented, obviously. But he really is like kind of enters the grind. So I think he's fun. I don't know, again, like what is his ceiling? Like, how good can he be? He's not super long, right? Like, he's not deep off the tee.
He's right there with, he's a little under 300 last year, 77th.
Yeah. So and I hate this, but it's hard for guys like that to it's hard to, when Rahm is better than you are at everything else anyway, and he's also like 30 yards longer than you. That's tough, right? Like, that's a difficult thing to take into a PGA Championship week or a US Open week or whatever. But yeah, I'm excited for Maverick McNealy. I think he's a good player. It was obviously a great week for him until 17. And then the Eagle on 18, you don't really know how to feel about it. You're like, oh, great, awesome. Like, I could have won the tournament. But then you can't play that game because you would have had pressure and, whatever. So
I like Maverick McNealy a lot. I poke fun at the fact that he didn't get to play Pebble until he was like 13 or 14 or whatever, and that was like, him growing up. But Greg, he's had to answer a lot of questions about motivation in his career. Remember when he was in college, it was like, am I going to turn pro? Am I not? What do I actually want to pursue? That is not generally a question that gets asked of people who are going on to try to be a professional athlete. Like, most of us, myself included, thought we were going to be professional athletes or kept the dream alive way longer than we should have, right? Like, that's normally how it works. To be answering those questions as you're winning events in college, it's not normal. So this is also not really a normal path to the PGA Tour for Maverick McNealy.
I still think if the Knicks are scouting the Nerf tournaments around, they might need a point guard. And
right.
So the dream's still alive for me.
You know how Steph Curry changed the game, and like now it's all about shooters and small ball. Like, if someone changes it to like Nerf skill set, you're still good. I think you still got the legs under. I think you can get in on this.
And my motivation is there. It's unquestioned.
Yes, unquestioned.
Are your ACLs there? That's the question. Are you?
Yeah, I had one meniscus surgery, but it was repaired. It wasn't even removed. So knees are strong. Wind, if I got looks, I think my wind would get a little better. I could put a little more work into it. But yeah, all in all, the dream's alive. I'm ready to go.
You need a slam ball league for Nerf. Remember slam ball?
Yeah, I will never forget slam ball. It was the greatest thing ever invented.
That seems like a pretty big insurance liability for whoever owned the league.
Right? Yeah, these huge human athletes flinging themselves through the air at like
20 feet in the air.
Heights.
That seemed uninsurable.
Since do you remember how they used to do free throws? If like you fouled someone, which I don't even know what a foul was, one guy would try to dunk it on the other guy. One guy would start in the corner and be like a face off. That is like the most dangerous thing you could ever draw up. It was amazing.
They're like, how do we take the NFL and make it like twice as dangerous without pads?
Yeah, well, we got to raise it. If we do it 25 feet in the air and include the contact,
yeah, exactly,
the falls will be much more dramatic.
For sure.
Anyway, I hate to change subjects, but on Maverick McNealy, I agree with Kyle. He is a grinder. And if you didn't know the story and you just watched him, you'd think that motivation isn't a question. Yeah, when you see somebody struggle under pressure, you know that they care. Like, to go back to this Brooks article, when Brooks talks about how he used to be a hothead and he throws his clubs and he, is breaking his bag and the competition in him burns so much. It doesn't make sense to me when he says I don't care about PGA Tour events, because that emotion says that I care. And so when you choke under pressure, it means that you care. there's a motivation there. And just because it doesn't pan out, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean anything in terms of how much you care. So what I see out of McNealy is a guy who is motivated and really, really cares, which I like and I admire. And if you didn't know the story, you wouldn't be able to tell. You don't really see much of that attitude that you might expect. You don't see a guy who is wondering if he wants to be there at all. And his style is definitely a grinder style, which I admire.
Solo second for Maverick McNealy. Solo third for one Mito Pereira, who almost pulled it off, man. I love this guy so much. KP, since he made his debut last summer, he's been ball striking the heck out of it. He's got a couple of top 10s. This, I believe, his best finish. Is he now seemingly he's the front runner? I know we're one event in, but like he's like the favorite to win logically the Rookie of the Year for this season.
Yeah, what he's okay, so he's 26 years old. So some of these guys, you're like, it's weird because Neiman is like 4 years younger than him, right?
I know.
Right?
It's so crazy.
And Neiman's been on tour for like the last 3 or 4 years, and they're both from. I kind of just randomly go ahead.
I was just gonna say Neiman is 24, right? No, 22. Sungjae's 23, and they've been they've been out there grinding forever, seemingly.
Matthew Wolf is still like 19, I think. We do a weird like ages thing where we get them. We do them based on how long they've been in our lives or they've been in the spotlight rather than how old they actually are. But yeah, Mito was really good this week. He was I think he's my sleeper, 60-1, 66-1. Is he beloved in the DFS community? It seems like he would be.
He is he is the flavor of the month, baby. Let's go. Yes. Yeah. Ever since he made his debut and immediately, yes, exactly right. Got off to a good start. He's a ball striker. He gave yes.
Yeah. So he's and he was great too. You know, I thought he was his, I don't know if you want to call it a coming out party, but he was awesome at the Olympics, and he was in that 7 or whatever 6-7-man playoff. And I think he lost out on the third hole, but he seems like he's got some real panache, like some real is that the right? Am I using that right? Producer Jacob, can you look that up? Panache. I think that like gumption, like he's gravity about him. And he's a ton of fun to watch. So yeah, I'm excited about him for this upcoming season.
Here is the definition for panache: flamboyant confidence of style or manner.
Yeah, maybe not. He's not flamboyant. I probably picked the wrong one there.
I lost my follow-up question about Mito here. But Greg, this is so we often talk about winning being a skill. Right. Winning is a skill, being kind of in it. Now, he kind of played himself a little bit out of this on Saturday on the back nine. But when you win 3 times on the Corn Ferry like he did last year, and he's now consistently just being around the top of the leaderboard, these are all very good signs for a guy who's coming into most of our lives just recently here in the last 90 days.
Right. And the transition for him from the Corn Ferry Tour to the PGA Tour has been seamless. So it's not like the game. There was no bump in the road. There was no moment where he had to learn. And there are guys like John Augenstein, who was in the mix for a while early in the tournament. And he is a guy who played really well in the USAM, and in amateur golf he was a star. And he comes out on the PGA Tour and really struggled for a while. We talked about it on Monday a little bit, Rick. And then it takes a little bit to get familiar with it. But when you play professional golf, and you're his age, so you have a little bit of experience in professional golf. You're not it's not so new. You're used to this, and this is where you're meant to be. You're expected to be. It's not that much different if you have the right mindset, and he clearly does. And then the game it's a really nice formula for that. You're not relying on holing putts from all over the place like Jordan Spieth, where it feels. When Jordan first came out, it doesn't feel like you can do that for a career. With Mito, it feels like he's got a real solid foundation to have not just a great year this year, but a career, a long-standing career. out on tour. And that's a nice feeling. It gives you a lot of confidence. You constantly have birdie looks. You constantly are. I mean, he hit the fewest amount of greens he hit this week was 14. He hit 15 the first 2 days and 14 the over the weekend. He's second in strokes gained approach for the week. That's really impressive stuff, and it gives you a lot of confidence when you can hit it that way. So yeah, I'm all in on Mito.
Real quick,
please.
I think winning multiple times on the Corn Ferry is kind of underrated. I think we kind of look at it, and maybe it's a name thing. Like Corn Ferry just sounds kind of. It sounds.
They got to get a new sponsor.
It's less than it's not the PGA Tour, but it's legit. I mean, it's really good. And so if you win once, okay, fine. But if you're winning like multiple, like Homa won multiple times on the Corn Ferry Tour. If you're winning multiple times on the Corn Ferry Tour, I think we underrate that. I think that's a real thing. So I just as a follow up to some of the Mito stuff there.
Do you know who the all-time wins leader on the Corn Ferry Tour is?
Not wins, but I think I know I think Darren Stiles is the all-time money winner on that tour.
Well, he's got 5 wins. I don't know. I don't have the money list. I only have the wins.
Yeah.
One guy has 7 of them.
Steven Yeager.
Ooh, Steven Yeager has 6 wins. He is second.
What a guess.
Great. Don't keep guessing, because that guess was so good that you're gonna get credit for basically getting it right. The all-time Corn Ferry wins leader is Jason Gore, 7 of them.
Wow.
How
about that?
Okay, so like early 2000s, late 90s, maybe
2000 to 2010. Exactly right.
Okay,
Jason Gore 7 times. There is a very big golf event. I guess it's not a tournament. It's more of an event.
I think it's it's an event.
An event next week, which I want to talk about, but I've got to do our little odds and ends here very quickly. Luckily, because we stink at betting, our best bets recap can be very, very quick. We lost them all. John Rahm got you and I, Kyle. You had him to finish in the top 10. I had top European. Mark got stung by Kevin Na and his miscut. He had Na over Simpson. Coach went with Doug Im over Shea Reve. And Greg, you went the opposite. You said, I got this. I got Ches Reavie top 10, which he was the first round leader, and then faded over the final 3. I think he finished, 21st or something. So, listen, there's only one direction for us to go, and that is up from here.
I don't regret the Rahm stuff. You get sick, like you have an whatever. Like I'm gonna keep riding him.
Once I saw the stomach issues thing, I was like, I should just text Jacob, and we got to re-record that whole episode now because I feel terrible about it. One and done. So quick one and done update for us losers with $0. This is the first event, so this is our season long totals as well. Kyle, you and I went with Kevin Na. Coach and Greg went with Cam Champ. They all missed the cut. $0 for us. Jacob, trying to flip the script here out of the gate on our new one and done season, went with Mark Leishman, $315,000. And Mark, who is not here for his mini victory lap, wins the week and takes the early lead, $763,000 from Maverick. McNealy, gentlemen, I figure we should spot these guys a couple $100,000 before we catch them and pass them quickly.
Yeah, I like
Coach. We should just give Coach. We should give Coach $1 million again, even though it's the start of the season instead of the middle. Do you regret your Kevin Na pick at all, Rick, or do you feel like that was the right call?
I mean, hindsight's always 20/20. I mean, he was one of the hottest players in this field coming in at a course
great history there too.
Great history, great fit as well. Played well on Thursday. So one really ugly round on Friday, and he misses the cut. I would say no, I do not regret that.
Yeah, I don't either. I felt like it was the right pick regardless, and it just, I don't know, just happens sometimes.
It will only sting more when he wins Shriners, because that was the only other place that you could have saved Na for. So when he wins Shriners, it might sting a little bit more, but as long as he doesn't win Shriners, I'm pretty happy with it.
I regret Camp Champ. While we're not going,
I think he's hard to pick for a one and done. Like really difficult.
It was a complete flyer. I was gonna go with Shea Rivet, and now I know he didn't. On Thursday, the regret hurt way more because he's your first round leader. He fades, but still, he was the right pick for me, and I went away from it for I went for a home run swing. Kyle knows what that's all about. I just swung for the fences and went with Champ, and I had no real logic behind it. And it was like one of those like you're in the restaurant and you have something in mind on the menu and you're going to go with it. You go with it every time you go to the restaurant and the waitress comes up or waiter and you just change it, get a special, get something and
panic.
What am I doing? And that's how I felt about Camp Champ. What was I even thinking?
Man, Chez Reavy, Greg. So we mentioned first round leader. He was very much on Friday afternoon in risk of pulling a full Keegan, which is, if you don't know, that is being a first round leader and missing the cut.
He was still the play.
Camilla has done that.
Yeah, there's a list of like Matt Every's done it. Actually, Trevor Immelman has done it. There's a list of like 13 or 14. I pulled this once. I'd have to go back and check, but it's a pretty astounding thing to do.
What did you shoot? 2 or 3? He shot like 2 or I think he got it in at 2 over.
Well, he got it in at 3 over, but he made a couple birdies, I think, coming in on Friday. Like he was like on the number and trending poorly with like 4 holes to go.
I was looking for Na. I saw Na shot. I think he was 3 under on Thursday, and then I'm looking for him on Friday. And I keep scrolling. I'm like, God, it's just only 3 letters. It's K Na. How come I can't find it on the leader? And it's like all the way down at the bottom. He shot 77 on Friday to miss the cut. What is that?
Not a single birdie on the card. It was shocking. Sia Najad went with Charlie Hoffman, got a T22 and 65,333. So while you do not see it in our one and done update here, I believe we have a new entry that we must compete with. So 3 of them. Awesome. Hello, Jacob.
Hello. Yeah, I added Sia on the cheat sheet before the tournament teed off. So this is all legit. I just forgot to put it in the rundown here. But
Coach will break you over his knee if it's not legit.
You can check the receipts, and it hurt. It pained me whenever you mentioned sort of panic ordering something. Like literally on Friday, I was at a restaurant with my wife, got a nice chicken parm sandwich because it was a special. And I was like, you know what? That's easy. I've never been here before. And the waiter immediately hits me, what side do you want? Had not prepared at all.
Oh, no.
I panic ordered collard greens with a chicken parm. And I made some stupid joke like this is, just like they do in Italy. And the waiter thought I was an idiot.
Oh boy,
it was terrible. So, you're bringing up bad memories here, but I'll take the 315 with Mark here.
Does anyone else's significant other? So my wife will literally like have everything planned out 2 days in advance of going to a restaurant. She'll be on Yelp checking the reviews. She'll be reading the menu. She says, "Do you want to look at the menu?" And I say, "No, they're going to present me one when I get there." Like, why do I have to decide this 2 days in advance? Is that common? That's like, I'm nervous. That's like what crazy people do, right?
No, so I'm your wife, and my wife is you.
Oh, cool.
My wife lives like just without we're just not carefree, but she doesn't. I have extreme FOMO about everything. Like I mean everything. It's unbelievable. I get what I want, what I get every time, and then I'm like, I wish I would have got that. And she's like, you need to be instituted. I think like you need help. This is a problem.
I'm just afraid that, like, okay, you look at the menu on Yelp, that's from 6 months ago. It might have changed by now. There's a lot of things going on here. I'll just see what they have when I get there.
Yeah, I agree. Because you don't know how you're going to feel when you get there, too.
Right.
Something's going to stick out. And the thing is, to me, the first thing, there's always something that jumps out. And
Abraham answered. The Abraham answer of food choices.
Right. It jumps out, and you got to go with that. And if you don't, you have immediate regrets. If you don't go with it,
then Cam Champ misses the cut.
Right, exactly. And I have one other restaurant philosophy before we move on. If there's a name of the restaurant and in the which most restaurants have a name. If
Mo-
when there's
most
a
of
name
them
as a
do, yeah.
restaurant, there's in on the menu. If an item has that name in it, I tend to go with it because I mean this is
Okay.
like a specialty, right?
Do
So
you have an example? Like you get
Like
Like if you go to
pancakes
the
at
Waffle
IHOP,
House.
or-
waffles at Waffle House. I hadn't thought about that one. There's a restaurant around where I live called Tomato Tomato, and there's a pizza, the Tomato. I forget what the rest of it, but it says that specifically in there. It's identical to the name. It's the tomato. I think it's tomato. The tomato. Margarita pizza. Right. This is
Okay.
this is what they specialize in. When
it's
the
what
chefs
they
open the
built their
restaurant.
restaurant around. Yeah.
Right.
Or-
You get that.
Or it's the highest margin item on the menu, and they're tricking people like Greg into ordering it.
Well, I mean, I'm not as
gotta have-
I'm not as much of a shrewd businessman as you were, but I'm a sucker for that. If that's the case.
I know tomato.
You gotta trust. You trust them.
I know that restaurant, and I just put it together that it's tomato, not tomato is the name.
Yeah, I
of
heard
the
somebody say it the other day that way. And I've been
restaurant. So embarrassing for
That's
us.
I just got
All
that.
yeah,
on
that's
Friday.
tough.
we gotta move on. All right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about the Ryder Cup. It's coming up. We're here. It's Ryder Cup week. But first, we're gonna take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back, gentlemen. It's time. The Ryder Cup week begins the moment that was it Ryder Cup week when McNealy didn't hole out from the fairway on 18, or do we have to actually wait until all the putts are dropped?
I think it was Ryder Cup week after Morikawa holed out at the Open. I think it's been Ryder Cup week for 3 months. No, I was thinking about that. I think it was when McNealy didn't make an Albie. I think that's right. I think that's the Ryder Cup week.
Once the results are settled.
Yeah.
Producer
Jacob
Jacob says
says-
it was Ryder Cup week after that Brooks article dropped in Golf Digest. That's good.
Also fair.
Yeah, cover boy on Golf Digest. So our friends over at Caesars, these odds have not moved all that much even in the last couple of weeks. The United States team still the favorites, -187, Europe +188, and if you think that they will tie, don't bet the tie, 12-1. Greg, I mean, we don't have to talk about the betting angle. We can if we want, but I mean, what's the case for the American team? What's the case for and against the American team winning the Ryder Cup?
They have a lot of advantages on paper. You've heard about the official world golf ranking. The ages is something that's very common as well. But if you look statistically at these teams, there are significant advantages for the U.S. team, and some of them are driving distance is a big advantage for the U.S. team. I actually have some stats here right in front of me. So 8 of 12 players on the U.S. average over 300 yards off the tee, and on the European side, it is only 6 of 12. Right, the Europeans have an advantage in the accuracy. The Americans do in distance. So then you go down to putting. We always think the U.S. loses because they don't make any putts, but they have 6 of their 12 players are in the top 35 in strokes gained putting, which is really impressive. And on the European side, it's I have it. I have a whole list here of these kind of things. But I think they have 3 players who are inside the top 30 in that. And then the next one, which I love, in match play, you got to make birdies, right? Well, on the American team, all 12 of their players were top 25 in birdie average last year.
That's amazing.
And if you go to the European team, they have 3 players inside the top 40 in birdie average. So those kind of numbers to me, if you're looking at this like a normal tournament, if this were the WGC match play, the 12 American players, you would choose you would choose it every day. There's no reason to go with the European side on paper. Unfortunately, we know that's just not how it works.
So my case is actually something that Greg said here at the end, and it's something people have been tweeting at me for like 3 weeks. Like, oh, we know how this is going to go. We know how this always goes. And it's like, well, I understand why you would say that because the U.S. has lost a lot over the last 20 years. But they're also like kind of a miracle in 2012 away from having won 3 in a row at home, where they get to set the course up. They get to make it long. They get to take advantage of what they're good at, which is hitting it 350 yards off the tee. And if like 27 things don't go Europe's way on Saturday and Sunday at Medina, Poulter birdies the last 5 on Saturday. Justin Rose makes a 60-footer on Sunday. Rory almost misses his tee time. Like, there's just so many different things that happened on that Saturday. Then we're kind of talking about this as like hey, we win at home, you win at home. That's just how it is. And so I'm not. I get why people are like, oh, Europe's going to win by 20, after the Brooks stuff comes out. And I'm not super caught up in that. I think that the combination, again, of kind of turning over the generations for the U.S., I think that will have a lot of like goodwill effect on their team. And you combine that with the advantage they have and how they've genuinely like taken advantage of that over the last 3 Ryder Cups at home, even though I know they got beat at Medina. I mean, they smoked Europe in 2016. Like, it was not really that close. The final numbers were kind of close, but I was there on Sunday. It was not a real thing. And could the U.S. lose? Of course. I don't feel a lot of angst around the fact that they will. Now, maybe Rahm goes 5-0. Maybe Rory is just dicing up everybody on the U.S. side. But I don't know. I think the U.S. is in a really, really it would be a disaster if they lost, and that could happen, and it would be fun to talk about. But I don't know. I don't really see it right now.
Okay. Greg, make the case for the European team.
They have a very strong ability in their captains. Now, this is a different captain, but their model, it highlights their strengths, and they're not afraid to hide weaknesses. They're not afraid to go play just to throw a name out there because we're unfamiliar. Bernd Wiesberger isn't really hot. They'll play him twice. It won't be. They're not afraid of doing that. And so what happens is we have a lot more depth than they have, and there's no need for the Europeans to play all 12 of their guys a lot. And so there are ways. For instance, let's say you're going to play Bernd Wiesberger twice, and I'm sorry to pick on him, but you throw him out in a 4-ball match with a really good player, and you have a chance. And then he plays a singles match, and hopefully he draws somebody who's played 5 matches, and they're tired. And all of a sudden you can steal, you kind of squeeze a point or a half a point out of a weak player. And then you have a Rahm, a Poulter, and a McIlroy who are buzzsaws. And if they go out and win, and they're in 3 different groups, and they win 3 points between all of them, all of a sudden you're at, you got 9 points there between 3 guys, and you only need 14 and a half to win.
I don't believe in Poulter on this course. Is Poulter going to like light it up at Whistling Straits?
There's distance was a huge advantage in 15, which is part of my case I had to make a case for the U.S. side.
Let's figure out, is it distance or strokes gained off the tee? Because obviously they're different. You can get them in different directions. Because distance is heavily in favor of the United States team. Strokes gained off the tee is much, much better for the Europeans. If you look at the last 365 days, 5 of the top 6 players in strokes gained off the tee are Euros. Now, it might not be because of distance, but that's
so accurate.
It goes Bryson, Rahm, Sergio, Victor Hovland, Rory McIlroy, Matt Fitzpatrick. That's the last 365 days. But distance is completely different.
I think Data Golf has some stuff on this.
In 2015, it was distance.
Yeah, I was going to say from the PGA that it was strokes gained off the tee, but the disproportionate percentage of that was based on distance. That's why you see Finau and DJ, all these guys in the top 10 at that PGA Championship. Jason Day obviously won. Spieth's not long. He finished second. I think the path forward for Europe is fairly there. I think there's a lot of different, and this is kind of like why you get at some of the percentages stuff. There's a lot of paths for the US. They can do a lot of different stuff and still win. I think Europe's path is very, very simple. Rahm, the guys that are good on that course have to be awesome. Rahm,
Yes.
Rory, Hovland, and I don't know, Paul Casey. I don't know. I'm trying.
Yeah.
Lowry, maybe. They have to be lights out. And I think they're going to have to get something on Friday or Saturday that, like, I don't know, honestly, like maybe it's something in the press that Rory kind of goes at. Remember when Rory went at Reed on Saturday night at Augusta in 2018 when they were paired together, and it didn't really work out, but he kind of like shot his shot and tried to like get in Reed's head. I think something like that could work with how fragile this US team seems to be, like just all the evidence that we have there, that if like Rahm said something on Friday night or Rory did, I don't know what that would be, but I think you could kind of get in there a little bit, and then they start like not trusting each other and kind of like falling apart a little bit. And then all of a sudden, if Sergio's the other guy I was thinking of, he's awesome off the tee. If those get, and awesome at Ryder Cups, if those guys start going downhill a little bit, that's their path. Like that's it. If Rahm and Rory and those guys don't play well, I can't see Fitzpatrick and Wiesberger and Lee Westwood and Poulter carrying this European team. Maybe not even in Europe, but especially not at Whistling Straits.
So I'm glad you brought up Sergio, because he kind of epitomizes, I think, the real path ultimately as a whole for this group is the putting. So I found my numbers on the putting. Sorry about earlier, but they have 2 players in the top 40 in strokes gained putting, and they have 4 players outside the top 100. So for the European team, Sergio is one of them. The Europeans have in the past taken at Ryder Cups guys that are not great putters, and they've become the best putters in the world. Sergio is one of them. Ian Poulter statistically was really good this year, but his statistics for the year and what he does in the Ryder Cup, it doesn't matter. They become great putters. And if they get it going on the greens and the flat stick really starts rolling for them, it generates a lot of momentum on their side. You start to see the chest pumping and the chest pounding and all that kind of stuff. And it gets really hard to beat. And then you add in the Rahms and the Rorys, who I agree with Kyle, they have to be really good. But I think ultimately that's their path on the greens. If they out-putt us, even though we're better putters, I think they have a chance.
There was I want to get to this Johnny Miller interview that he did on Saturday on Golf Channel in a second. But you know, my least favorite part, the only thing I don't like about the Ryder Cup is that if I bet the European side, I can't disclose it to anyone because people think that like if I bet the Euros, I'm now a traitor. I'm now Benedict Arnold if I think that they are a good value on that side. I hate that my patriotism or lack thereof is tied to my wagers.
I'm out on that. I think it's fine to root for Europe if you're not even rooting, you're just betting. You're hedging your fandom.
Also, even if I was rooting for them, does anybody care? Should anybody care?
No, I think that's silly. I want to root for them. I can't bring myself to, like, when it comes down to it. They're way more likable. I mean, honestly, like
the International Presidents Cup team was super likable. I loved those guys.
Yeah.
I don't feel the same way as I do about the European Ryder Cup team, but I would get it, right? Like if you were like, I just like them more. I don't care about the US drama. I mean, these are guys we watch. Like we like Rory, we like Victor Howe. We watch them every single week. Why? Because they're putting on the European flag. Should I now hate them? I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing. When I've only been to one Ryder Cup, but when I went in 16, you sit in those team rooms, and it's kind of weird because you've got like 16 people up on the days, and they're all being interviewed at the same time, and it can get awkward. And Europe is like unbelievable at those press conferences, and you walk out of each side's press conference, and you're like, I think I want to root for Europe this time. Like they're just so likable and they understand like what's going on. And the US is just, it's kind of weird and awkward. And yeah, I think that, I don't think it's wrong to say that Europe's team is I don't know anybody who wouldn't say Europe's team is far more likable than the US side.
Johnny Miller did an interview on Saturday on the Golf Channel, and among other things, Greg, I think it was like a 4-question interview. I think he mentioned 6 different wins that he had on the PGA Tour. It was impressive stuff. It was a very classic Johnny Miller interview, but he kind of alluded to day one being critically important at the Ryder Cup. Obviously, if you lead after day one, you're kind of in, driver's seat, so to speak, but he tried to connect it to nerves. He connected it to the first day is always the most nervous. And if you can kind of survive and get away from the first day being in the lead, that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the event.
Yeah, the one thing about that is the Americans have led after, or I think the stat was the Europeans have not led after the first session, which is different than the first day, but they haven't led after the first session since 2006. So
That's crazy.
The start, it's crazy. And typically the afternoons, Europe seems to own the afternoons, which maybe that's the key. Winning the afternoon sessions is key. I don't know. But I think all the players feel the nerves. I think the pressure is way higher on the on the American side rather. And the Europeans are at this point playing with house money. Like if they lose this Ryder Cup, they were supposed to. Yeah. And there's nobody is going to look at Padraig Harrington as a guy who doesn't know what he's doing. Nobody's going to come down on Jon Rahm and Rory McIlroy for not leading the team. They were way outmanned. And if the US loses, it's a disaster. No matter what. Yeah. I mean, if they lose close, if they lose big, they made a mistake. Steve Stricker's position in the game could completely change. I mean, you think about what Hal Sutton had to deal with, and it's incredible, and it just raises the pressure. So I don't know with what Johnny's saying. If I understand where he's coming from, I don't know if it's the first day nerves because the U.S. has done well in the first session, and typically the nerves are highest closer to the first tee. And by the time you get to the second 9, you're a little more comfortable. You've kind of settled down a little bit. And so I don't know about just nerves, but general pressure on the teams is way higher for the U.S.
2018, the U.S. won the first 3 matches, and then they lost the next 8.
Yeah.
So it was 8-3 on.
I'm not sure that's nerves.
On Saturday morning, and then they won the last one on Saturday morning. So it was 8-4 going into Saturday afternoon, which is yeah, it's crazy. Last thing I'll say on this, and we can wrap things up, but we got Bryson hitting the ball 215 miles an hour on Instagram. We've got the Brooks stuff hanging out there. Like, this is going to be a circus. Like, the week is going to be a content bonanza, and that's going to be fun for us. I don't know if it's great for the U.S. team, but I'm excited. And I think that stuff is separate from the actual, like, hey, this is the Ryder Cup and it's awesome. It is, I think, the best event in golf. I wrote that after 2016 when I went at Hazeltine. It's such a, I got into kind of an argument on Twitter with some people about, like, oh, it's this fake thing, it's this exhibition. And it's like, man, there's no, like, these guys aren't playing for money. There's no FedEx stuff. There's no OWGR points. It's just like, I want to, to me, it's very pure. I understand why you would say it's kind of fabricated or whatever. And there's a lot of nonsense that goes on during the week, but the actual golf it's awesome. It is the best. So I can't wait. I'm so excited about this week. If you're able to get out there, it's going to be a great time. So I'm pumped.
Boom. Okay. Well, it's Ryder Cup week. Here's what we've got going on. Tuesday afternoon, mega preview pod. Looks like we're going to try to get a bonus pod in on Wednesday, Thursday-ish, somewhere in there. Remember, this is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so we'll do round by round after each day, and it's going to be a blast. And I think that's it. Can't wait. Okay. Thank you very much to producer Jacob. Does all the hard work behind the scenes. That right there, Greg DuCharme. You can find him on Twitter at The Real GFD. And that's Kyle Porter. You can find at Kyle Porter CBS. You can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut, and we'll catch you next time.